To most people's understanding, Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD, is a permanent and uncurable disorder, and for the most part they're right. However, it's not at all impossible. It takes highly skilled and trained psychotherapists to treat someone diagnosed with NPD, and although success stories are extremely rare for reasons that will be mentioned later on, if you or a loved one is diagnosed, it's not completely hopeless. So, if you are curious how NPD is often treated, keep watching, because today we're going to go through the details needed to answer the question of, can narcissism ever be cured? Be sure to stick around until the end, because we're going to go through the stages of therapy an NPD individual might experience. And don't forget to like and subscribe. First, we are going to go over 3 types of therapies. Schema therapy. Schema therapy addresses the narcissist's mental structures, called schemas, that are maladaptive and usually ingrained in them since childhood. An example of these negative mental schemas would be stereotyping. Although stereotypes are often offensive, their purpose is to organize and make understanding of the world easier. The quote-unquote dumb blonde stereotype has no evidence to support it, but many still see a blonde woman and assume they will be ditzy, thus impacting their behavior towards them. Schemas help organize an individual's world around them, and when someone has a personality or attachment disorder, their negative schemas often sabotage their real chances at success. The narcissist's negative schemas create their destructive coping methods, like discarding anyone who threatens their egos, or other avoidant methods, like substances or affairs. They're also responsible for a narcissist's sense of entitlement and lack of empathy or regard for other humans. Schema therapy helps recognize and reorganize their unhealthy mental structures and replace them with new ones. Schema therapy also uses concepts from our next type of therapy on our list, Gestalt therapy. Gestalt therapy is a person-focused therapy that focuses on the present moment, but with an understanding of the contexts of the environment throughout their lives that makes them perceive things the way they do. This therapy develops a lot of self-awareness within the narcissist. Dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. Dialectical behavioral therapy is a form of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, except it integrates more dimensions than our unhealthy thinking patterns. This type of therapy teaches people to live in the moment, develop healthy ways to cope with stress, regulate their emotions, and improve their relationships with others. This type of therapy was created as a treatment for another cluster B personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, or BPD, proven to be highly effective at managing the harmful characteristics of BPD. It's also been used to treat PTSD and narcissism as well. By incorporating group therapy, narcissists will learn to develop healthy relationships with other like-minded individuals. This creates a non-judgmental environment that promotes growth. There are only 3 types of therapies that have been proven effective in treating NPD, but there are others. CBT and metacognitive interpersonal therapy are 2 other examples of treatment. In most cases, therapists will need to use many different types of therapy until they find one the NPD individual responds to. We have already discussed that treatment for a narcissistic personality disorder is possible, though rare. So, why do such few narcissists receive treatment? Well, here's 3 reasons. The first reason is, not many narcissists can recognize their problematic behavior. It's no surprise to anyone that the narcissist would believe that they're flawless people. Many narcissists will live their lives blaming everyone else for their problems, rather than taking personal accountability for anything. For this reason, it usually takes a lot for a narcissist to seek out treatment in the first place. The second reason is, few therapists are specialized in narcissistic treatment. Gaining training to provide therapy in a specialized field like narcissism is a long and costly process. Most psychotherapists have general practitioner training and do not know how to deal with or correctly recognize someone with a narcissistic personality disorder. As such, they may accidentally trigger or be manipulated by a narcissist. A therapist must do a minimum of 3 years in advanced training to become specialized in this field, often more. This results in the available centers being more expensive for the client, have longer wait times, less availability in proximity, and less selection of therapists for the client to choose from. It's important that the narcissist does not feel threatened by the therapist. Even something out of the therapist's control, like their height or appearance, can make the narcissist seem threatened. If they are, the narcissist is less likely to complete the process. Because there may be only 1 or 2 possible therapists in the narcissist's area, if they decide they don't like them, there aren't any more to choose from. And the last reason is that the treatment is long, and most narcissists do not make it through the process. The most important reason why NPD treatment is so rare is that it's a long and often painful process. The length of time it takes to treat NPD is usually up to 5 to 10 years. There are many stages that produce overwhelming discomfort within the narcissist. Sometimes a narcissist will be halfway through their treatment, only to slip back a few stages. Gaining back their original momentum can be extremely challenging and require a lot of patience from the therapist and self-discipline from themselves. What are the stages of treating someone with NPD? Now, we are going to go through some of the stages in NPD treatment. Of course, every single therapist will use different methods, so no 2 therapy plans are exactly alike. Also, the nuanced complexity that is involved with NPD is impossible to properly summarize in one list, so please never try this yourself at home. However, if you or a loved one has NPD and you're open to therapy, this list might help you prepare for how the stages in your treatment plan might look like. Before we begin, if you like what you're hearing, why not take a second to click that subscribe button? We've always got new free educational psychology content just for you. Alright, let's get started. The treatment is focused on them, their emotions, and the way people make them feel. Seeing as a narcissist's ego is extremely vulnerable, it's crucial that the therapist focuses on the NPD client and their emotions, thoughts, and needs. The beginning of therapy is not to force change in the client. Instead, the therapist is trying to understand them and build a relationship. Usually, this is when the narcissist leaves the treatment program. The therapist has soothed and validated their ego, and they feel temporarily cured. However, when there's a fear of future pain due to their disorder or genuine interest in the therapy, they are more likely to continue on to the next step. Identifying and creating new coping mechanisms. This stage is a little more difficult, as it requires exploration of their present self and childhood self. However, because in this stage the client is still explaining their behaviors, rather than listening to the therapist's constructive feedback that could threaten their ego, they don't feel any judgment yet. Then, together, the therapist and client will create healthier coping methods that the narcissistic individual can use when moving forward in the treatment process. At this point, no behavior modification has been made. Forming new habits. This is when things really begin getting difficult, because it requires the therapist to hold the narcissistic person accountable. Breaking habits is not an easy process, especially when these habits are developed from early childhood. Of course, the therapist is unable to be around the client 24/7, so it's important to be firm during therapy, so they transfer to real-world settings. It might take 100 tries of the therapist saying, "Don't think that way," until the NPD individual begins making progress. But everyone, narcissists included, are capable of breaking habits. Begin discussing their impacts on others. Once the narcissist has shown evidence of the new coping methods taking over the old, toxic ones, then the therapist can finally discuss the impacts that their behavior has on individuals. To get to this stage alone might take years, but it's crucial that they are at least trying to use different coping methods. Until they are ready to move forward from that stage, a narcissist cannot properly consider another person's life or show regard for it because they feel too much shame. Still, this stage only focuses on the NPD's cognitive empathy. They need to accurately identify the consequences of their actions, but without any emotional investment. Although it might still create shame, with healthier coping methods and emotional detachment, the narcissist will hopefully move forward. Focus on the pain they endured during childhood. Finally, once the rest of the toxic defense mechanisms are controlled and replaced with healthier ones, They are finally able to focus on their childhood traumas through an ideally non-judgmental lens. The goal of this stage is to create emotional empathy for their childhood selves. Throughout their lives, they've learned to only feel shame for being themselves, thus being unforgiving for their childhood mistakes or undeserved abuse. To avoid shame, they get so used to their toxic defense methods, they've never felt true empathy for themselves, let alone others. Until that happens, they will not be able to foster emotional empathy for others. Change their inner voice. The narcissist's inner voice is cold and harsh, and in order to develop empathy, they must make it softer and kinder. When a narcissist is using a harsh voice, the therapist recommends asking questions like, does your inner voice shame or guilt you instead of soothing you? Are you punishing yourself too hard? Like changing the habitual defense mechanisms, with practice and dedication, your inner voice can change too. Develop emotional empathy for other people. Once they understand their own pain that they feel at the expense of their inner voice, the narcissist realizes their inner voice is similar to their outer voice. If their own voice causes them so much pain, it's difficult to hide from the evidence that others feel the same pain. Usually, the first person they feel emotional empathy for is someone who is of no threat to their ego, such as their therapist. From there, their empathy hopefully grows to other people. Grow authenticity. The final stage in the process is developing an accurate and authentic portrayal of themselves to the world, flaws and all. This requires humility, which is terrifying to the narcissist, but with the proper therapist and treatment plan, it becomes less daunting. Because the therapist has accepted them while they were being truly honest, and there were no negative consequences, it reinforces the idea that other people will be accepting of their flaws as well. And that's a wrap. What do you think? Do you think narcissism is treatable? Have you ever met anyone with NPD who has successfully recovered? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know in the comments below. And before you go, for more great free psychological content, be sure to click like and subscribe. Or for more videos about narcissism, be sure to check out our Dark Psychology playlist for more. See you next time.